Don't miss Ensemble for These Times' upcoming concert, Mujeres Ahora, on May 9th at the Community Music Center, presented as part of the San Francisco International Arts Festival. For more information, go to www.e4tt.org.
Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for These Times. In this week's episode, we continue our conversation with Zanaida Robles, who we spoke to in January 2024. You have a piece called Made in LA, Identity and Belonging in the City of Angels, and it sounds fascinating. Can you tell us about that?
So I think you're talking, is that the one, is that with Iris Levine and Vox Femina? Is that
Yeah.
Okay, so the piece that I wrote is called Intersectionality.
Right, that is
right,
the title.
and that was the what you quoted, the Made in LA, that was the title of their concert.
Right.
So yeah, I wrote a piece called Intersectionality for that concert. It was a cool piece. I took poetry from three different poets, and then I bookended it with my own words, sort of defining what intersectionality is, and this idea of how we all have some kind of identity, whether it's cultural identity or gender identity, or these different identities that we have that define us and help and we know who we are through these various concepts of our identities, and they overlap many times. Most of us have overlapping identities, and that's intersectionality, right? And depending on what your identities are, you might experience different kinds of exclusion or discrimination, or lack, or different challenges based on our identity. And so this piece sort of explores intersectionality from the perspective of a Dominican American woman, and then from the perspective of an Asian American woman, and then from a person who, and then also the third poet is a person who is a woman who is has reached sort of like, she's not middle-aged, she's older in life, an experienced woman, right?
Yeah.
So these identities of age and ethnicity and geographic background and cultural background, these three different they're just kind of almost like vignettes. This is the experience. And that kind of comprised the whole project of intersectionality, is just to present these different kinds of identities in this one unified piece.
Nice. Were you involved any in the overall program and the concept, or did they just bring you in?
No, Dr. Iris Levine is just a brilliant, she's a master at creating programs. She's another one of my mentors and a huge influence on. I'm so grateful. And I was so honored when she called me and asked me to write this. It was a commissioned piece. So she already had the concept,
right,
for what she wanted to do. And about Made in LA, and just wanted to really feature LA, specifically LA, like LA composers and LA places. And so that was already in part of the plan. And I brought to the table this idea of, I want to explore this concept of identity and intersectionality. And that's how the piece came about.
Very nice. It's a fascinating concept to bring to music. I'm actually, in the back of my mind, starting to curate a program in 2026. I know, but we have to think that far ahead.
Yeah.
And it may morph, and I shouldn't even talk about it because it may morph, but it's having to do with women and identity, and that kind of intersectionality concept. We'll see where it goes. But when we get there, it may be very different. But anyway, but it's an interesting and powerful realm. In your blog, you write about grieving by letting go instead of numbing or distracting oneself in order to feel gratitude. Is this something you've been exploring in your music, or is that more sort of a life thing that is affecting you at the moment?
It's a life thing. I think eventually it probably will seep into the music. And I don't know how. But it's definitely been a life thing. I think it has colored some of my more recent works.
Yeah.
It's been a little dark. The music that's been coming out as a result of that creating process, it's tinged with a little bit of darkness, minor keys, minor modes, dissonances. I don't know. I think it, it's a phase. I'm living life, and I think that's what that is.
Yeah. Just the times that we're in, you mean? And yeah, no, it's true. Times are continuing to be optimistic and dark at the same time. It's interesting times.
Yeah.
So the Melodica Choir premiered your From the Stone Age in November.
Mm-hmm.
And the text explores ideas of identity and vulnerability, deep topics. Can you tell us about the piece? What drew you to these themes when you started working on it? And
yeah,
tell us about
I think okay, so honestly, From the Stone Age is about it's really about it's about a rock. It's about a stone, right? And it's about a stone that was once carved in the image of a god. Right. And over time, it's been weathered and worn away, and now it's just a rock, and all of its once sharp, jagged edges in the form of this, whatever this thing that was, and have now been smoothed out. So it's no longer rough. It's no longer, rigid. It exists sort of like it's always existed, since the beginning of time. And I think the poem, it's like when I first read it, I don't know, I guess because of where I was in my life, it resonated so deeply. I was like, this is like, it's like I did, discovering, your identity. And I used to be, I was supposed to be this thing, but time has, caused me. I don't know if the poet or if the poem is actually supposed to be like that, like, this represents a woman.
I could totally, I'd read the description, so I knew what it was about.
Yeah.
And as a woman who's growing older, I can, you see the sharp edges burnished off.
Yeah. It just when I read that poem, before I even had the Melodia commission, I knew I wanted to set that text. That was Alice Corbin Henderson text. And it's public domain because Alice Corbin Henderson lived in the late 19th century, early 20th century.
Right.
I knew I wanted to set that text. It was so powerful. And I was like, oh, that's a woman. That's a woman discovering who she really is and her essence. And so that's what I tried to write. I think it's a journey. It's very personal. And while I was writing it, I sang it a lot, especially there's a little solo part in there just talking about, well, the whole thing is from kind of like first person perspective. I've gone through all of this, and since I became a stone, I have no need, I don't have to remember everything exists already. I don't need to do anything for my existence to be complete. I'm complete. I sang what I wrote a lot, and it stuck with me, and I guess it's still sticking with me. When I think about that piece, it has a special place in my heart. I don't know why, and I don't really know why. Just the timing and the subject and the way that poem hit me. It's very personal. Yeah, and I still sing it. I remember one day, I was editing the score, and I was singing through it. And even while I was editing, I was like getting teary, and I was like, oh, this is me, what doesn't matter what anyone ever thought I was going to be. I am what I am. I don't know. I'm very dramatic.
Well, yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory of being a soprano. Okay, fine.
Exactly. I'm a soprano. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for listening to For Good Measure, and a special thank you to our guest, Zanaida Robles, for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to co-producer and audio engineer Stephanie M. Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts and tune in next week for Good Measure.